Hi everyone, I'm Satomi and I offer hands-on bread making classes in Tokyo. Today, I'll show you how to make apple cinnamon shokupan. This soft and fluffy loaf is filled with sweet simmered apples and has a warm hint of cinnamon. A cozy and comforting flavor combo, especially loved during winter seasons. Let's get baking. First, we need to adjust the temperature of our wet ingredients. For this recipe, that means adjusting the temperature of the egg and milk. It's important to keep the dough temperature between 26 to 28 degrees after kneading. This helps the yeast grow well and let us guess how long the proofing will take. Now it's winter season in Japan and today my room temperature is around 22 degrees. So I let the egg come to room temperature before using it. Then I warmed the milk to about 38 degrees. Be careful not to heat it over 40 degrees as higher temperature may reduce the effectiveness of the yeast. Adjust the temperature of your liquids based on your room temperature so your dough stays consistent and proofs properly. Please check the description box below for more details about controlling the dough temperature. The butter should be at room temperature regardless of the season. It softens easily and incorporates into the dough much better this way. You can set it aside for now as we'll add it after the initial kneading. Next, let's prepare the apple filling. Peel and cut the apples into about 2 cm cubes. In a small pan, add the apples, sugar, and water. Cover with a lid and simmer over low heat for about 10 minutes. If the moisture evaporates too quickly, add a little more water. If your lid doesn't seal tightly, the moisture may escape faster, so check occasionally to avoid burning. Once the apples are tender, remove the lid and cook uncovered until the liquid has mostly evaporated. Transfer the apples to the tray and let them cool completely. We'll sprinkle the cinnamon just before adding them to the dough. Let's start mixing our ingredients. Add the blend flour to the bowl of your stand mixer. I recommend using blend flour with a protein content of 12 to 13%. This higher protein helps form strong gluten, giving the bread its soft, fluffy texture and allowing it to trap the gas from the yeast for a good rise. Next, add the sugar, salt, and instant dried yeast. I usually go with the cane sugar since it's what I use for cooking, but granulated sugar is fine too. Make sure the salt is finely grounded. Larger grains don't mix evenly into the dough. I'm using instant dry yeast here, which can be added directly to the dried ingredients. If you are using active dry yeast, be sure to dissolve it in water before mixing. Once all the dry ingredients are in the bowl, give them a quick mix. This helps all the dried ingredients absorb the liquid evenly. Then pour in the egg and milk. I like to stir it briefly by hand before using the mixer as it helps things come together faster. Attach the dough hook and start mixing on low speed, just until all the flour is absorbed. Then change to medium speed and knead for about 10 minutes. If you use a KitchenAid, level 4 is medium. At the beginning of kneading, the dough often sticks to the bottom of the bowl. This is usually because the gluten hasn't developed yet. If you add extra flour at this stage, it may become too stiff once the gluten fully develops, which can result in dense or a tough bread. As long as it's not sticking to a large area of the bowl's sides, the hydration is fine. Scrape down the sides if the dough sticks to the bowl. After kneading for 10 minutes, the dough should be elastic and slightly stretchy. Now it's time to add the softened butter. Knead for another 10 to 15 minutes on medium speed until the dough becomes smooth and elastic. Now it's been about 22 minutes of kneading in total. Do a window pane test to check if the gluten has developed. Take a small piece of dough and stretch it gently. If it forms a thin see-through membrane without tearing, it's ready. If it rips easily, knead a bit more. To build even more gluten and reduce stiffness, I like using the slam and fold method. Pick up the dough and gently slam it onto your work surface, then fold it over. When you slam the dough, avoid using the tip of your thumbs to hold the dough, as this can apply too much pressure to one spot and damage it. Instead, use the base of your hand to support the dough. Repeat this about 20 to 30 times. Once you are done, check the dough temperature. It should be between 26 to 28 degrees. If it's lower temperature, the rising will take longer. If it's higher, the dough will rise faster, so please keep eye on it. Shape the dough into a tight ball. You want to create some surface tension as you form the ball. This tension helps the dough stretch and relax properly during the first blow. As a result, it will expand more in the oven. Place the dough into a bowl with the same side down and cover it with a damp towel. Let it rise in warm spot until it more than doubled in size. Now that the dough has expanded more than doubled in size, to check if it's ready, do the finger test. Dust a little flour in the center of the dough and gently place your finger to the bottom. If the indentation remains and you can see some bubbles on the surface, it's ready. If it springs back quickly and there are no bubbles, let it rise a bit longer. My dough was at 27 degrees after kneading, and it took about 45 minutes in a plouffer set to 35 degrees to get this point. Make sure to adjust the ploughing time depending on your environment and aim for the ideal dough size. If the dough feels slightly sticky, dust the surface lightly with flour and place gently to release the gas. This smooth side becomes the top surface. From now on, we'll keep this side facing out. This helps the dough hold the gas better and gives the final loaf a smooth porridge finish. Gently pull the sides of the dough away from the bowl, then scoop it out onto your work surface. Now we shape the dough into a tight ball again. Fold it in half 2 times while keeping the smooth surface on the outside. Then shape it into a ball, tucking the side underneath to create surface tension. Cover with a damp towel and let it rest for about 20 minutes until the dough relaxes. This resting time is crucial. It helps strengthen gluten and allows the dough to expand more in the oven, which gives a light and fluffy texture. While the dough is resting, grease your loaf pan with spray oil or butter. Let's also prepare the filling. Sprinkle cinnamons over the simmered apples and mix to coat them evenly. After resting the dough, gently poke the side of the dough. If it slowly springs back and leaves a dent, this is the sign that the dough has relaxed. If the dough still feels tight or resistant, let it rest for another 5 to 10 minutes. Let's move on to shaping. Gently degass it. Flip it over so the seam is on top, and lay it vertically. This prevents it from spreading too wide when rolled out. Use a rolling pin to flatten the dough, starting from the center and roll up and down. Stop just before the edges so a bit of dough gathers at the top and bottom. Stretch those edges out sideways into a rectangle. Make sure the thickness is as even as possible. Stretch the corners out. At this point, the width of the dough should indeed be narrower than the width of the pan. Arrange the apples in 5 horizontal rows across the dough. Start rolling from the top, using your thumbs to gently hold the apples in place. Stretch the bottom corners slightly wider before sealing. Seal the edge in a straight line and place the dough seam side down. Gently pinch the sides of the dough to seal, pressing the apples into the dough as you close it. Put the dough into the loaf pan seam side down, then cover it with plastic wrap or shower cap. Let it proof at around 30 degrees until it rises just below the rim of the pan. Don't forget to preheat your oven to 190 degrees. Once the dough has risen, close the lid and bake for 30 to 35 minutes until beautifully browned. Once it's baked, remove the lid and tap the pan several times to release the moisture. This helps prevent the loaf from shrinking. Let it cool completely on a warrior rack. For cleaner slices, place the loaf on its side and start cutting from the bottom corner. The texture is incredibly soft, and the apple-cinnamon combination brings the warm, cozy flavor that feels perfect for the winter season. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll give this apple cinnamon shokupan a try. You can find more Japanese bread recipes on my channel, so please subscribe. See you next time and happy baking!